The coffee shop's Wi-Fi was terrible, but that was exactly why Zara Hayes chose it. Bad security meant easy access, and the owner never questioned why a 25-year-old woman spent 6 hours a day hunched over a laptop in the corner booth, ordering nothing but black coffee and the occasional stale muffin. In the digital underworld where Zara made her living, invisibility was currency, and this shabby cafe in Chicago's forgotten South Side provided exactly the kind of anonymity she needed. Her fingers flew across the keyboard, lines of code cascading down the screen like a waterfall of green text against black. She was 3 layers deep into a corporate server, extracting payroll data for a client who suspected embezzlement. Not glamorous work, but it paid better than the programming job she'd been fired from 2 years ago for unauthorized system access. Corporate speak for catching her boss stealing from pension funds and having the audacity to report it. The door chimed, and Zara's trained peripheral vision caught the entrance without lifting her eyes from the screen. Expensive shoes. Tailored pants. Wrong neighborhood for that kind of money unless you were lost or looking for trouble. She filed the information away and continued working, her situational awareness honed by years of surviving in spaces where being noticed could be fatal. More shoes. These ones moving fast, scanning. 2 men, built like linebackers, wearing jackets despite the summer heat. Concealed carry, her mind supplied automatically. The expensive shoes belonged to a kid, maybe 13, who just realized he'd walked into something bad. Zara watched the reflection in her laptop screen as the boy's eyes widened, saw him start to back toward the door just as one of the men moved to block it. Not your problem, Zara told herself, even as her fingers were already moving, switching screens, accessing the cafe's security camera system through the laughably simple password the owner used for everything. She pulled up the feed on a second window, recording, always recording, because evidence was the only weapon that mattered when you had no physical power. "Hey kid," one of the men said, his voice carrying false friendliness. "Your dad sent us to pick you up. Said you forgot about your appointment." The boy's face went pale, and Zara knew. The way you know things when you've spent years reading body language and survival instincts, that this kid hadn't forgotten anything. He was about to be taken, and everyone in this cafe was going to pretend they hadn't seen it happen. Everyone except Zara. She hit 3 keys in rapid succession, and the cafe's ancient sound system suddenly blasted heavy metal at a volume that made everyone flinch. In the chaos, Zara was already moving, laptop shoved in her bag, crossing the space between her booth and the boy in 4 long strides. She grabbed his wrist and pulled him toward the kitchen, where the back exit was located. "Employees only," the barista shouted, but Zara ignored her, pushing through the swinging door with the boy stumbling behind her. Behind them, she heard chairs scraping, heavy footsteps, the 2 men realizing their easy grab had just become complicated. If you're enjoying this story and want to see what happens next, please subscribe to our channel and let us know in the comments where you're watching from. Your support means everything to us as we continue bringing these stories to life. The alley was narrow, dim, blocked on one end by a delivery truck. Zara made a split-second calculation and ran toward the truck, the boy keeping pace better than she'd expected. "Can you climb?" she asked, barely winded. "Yes," he gasped, and she noted the absence of why or what's happening. This kid understood danger, had probably been trained for scenarios exactly like this. "Fire escape, go." Zara boosted him up to the lowest rung, then followed, her laptop bag bouncing against her spine. They were 2 floors up when the men burst into the alley, shouting into phones, coordinating. Zara kept climbing, mind racing through options. They made it 3 buildings over before the boy's breathing became labored. Zara ducked into a roof access door that she'd picked the lock on months ago. The stairwell was dusty, abandoned, perfect. "Who are you?" the boy asked, his back against the concrete wall, trying to catch his breath. His English was perfect, but there was an accent underneath, something that spoke of expensive international schools. His clothes were designer, his watch probably cost more than Zara's car. "Someone who doesn't like kidnappers," Zara replied, pulling out her phone and immediately disabling location services out of habit. "Who are you? And who were those men?" "I'm Alexei," he said, then seemed to reconsider giving more information. My father is important. Those men weren't supposed to know where I was. My security detail was supposed to meet me at the cafe, but they never showed. His jaw tightened, which means someone told those men where I'd be. A mole. Zara's mind worked through the implications. Your security team's been compromised. You can't call whoever you usually call because you don't know who's feeding information. She watched his face, saw the confirmation. Okay, new plan. Do you have any way to contact your father that doesn't go through normal channels? Alexei reached for his phone, then stopped. They'll track it. If there's a mole, they could be monitoring everything. Smart kid. Zara pulled out her laptop, routing a call through 7 different proxies. I need a number. One that goes directly to your father, no intermediaries. The boy rattled off a number, and the phone rang twice before a voice answered, speaking in rapid Russian. English, Zara cut in. I have your son. He's safe. 2 men tried to grab him at Rosie's cafe on 53rd. His security didn't show. He thinks there's a mole. The voice on the other end switched to English, each word precise and deadly calm. Who are you? If you've harmed my son. She saved me, Papa, Alexei interrupted. Like in the movies. She pulled me out through the kitchen, and we climbed buildings. There was a brief silence then. Put her back on. The voice carried the kind of authority that expected immediate obedience, but Zara didn't take orders from strangers. I'm listening, she said, her tone making that clear. My name is Dimitri Volkov. Where are you now? The name triggered recognition. She'd seen it in dark web chatter, encrypted communications. Dimitri Volkov. Russian import-export, which was code for organized crime at a level that made local gangs look like amateurs. Somewhere safe, Zara said, not giving specifics. But those men are still looking, and they're coordinated. Your son needs real security. Agreed. Dimitri's voice held grudging respect. I'm sending my personal team. I'll need your location. Zara made a split-second decision. She gave him the address of a public library 6 blocks away. 1 hour. Your son goes free when I see your team is legitimate. If this is a setup, I disappear, and you never find either of us. Bold, Dimitri observed, and she could hear the dangerous smile in his voice. 1 hour. And miss. Hayes. Zara Hayes. No point hiding her name now. The library meeting went exactly as planned. Public space. Witnesses. Clear sightlines. Dimitri Volkov arrived in a black SUV that probably cost more than most people's houses, stepping out with 3 men who moved like military. He was tall, broad-shouldered, with silver threading through dark hair at his temples and eyes that assessed everything in seconds. When those eyes landed on Zara, she felt the weight of his scrutiny like a physical touch, intense and unsettling. He was handsome in a way that made her pulse quicken inappropriately. Sharp cheekbones, strong jaw, a mouth that looked like it rarely smiled but would be devastating when it did. Miss Hayes, Dimitri said, extending his hand. His grip was firm, controlled, his hand warm and strong against hers. The contact sent an unexpected jolt through her system, and from the slight widening of his eyes, he'd felt it too. You have my gratitude for protecting my son. Alexei's smart, Zara replied, pulling her hand away before the touch lingered too long. He kept his head. That saved both of us. Nevertheless. Dimitri pulled out a business card, his fingers brushing hers as he handed it over. The brief contact made her skin tingle. I'd like to hire you. Zara raised an eyebrow, trying to ignore her body's reaction to his proximity. To do what exactly? I'm not security. No, Dimitri agreed, and the way his gaze traveled over her face made her feel simultaneously exposed and seen. But you're a hacker. A skilled one. I need someone with your talents. Someone who isn't already in my organization, who doesn't have loyalties that could be compromised. You want me to find your mole, Zara realized. Among other things. Dimitri gestured toward the SUV. This conversation should continue somewhere more private. You have my word you'll be returned safely. It was the kind of invitation that was really a command, but the way he looked at her like she was a puzzle he wanted to solve, a challenge he wanted to conquer, made her pulse race. I'll follow in my own car, she said. And I'll be sharing my location with people who'll notice if I disappear. Dimitri's smile was genuine this time, transforming his face and making Zara's stomach flip. Cautious and intelligent. Dangerous combination, Miss Hayes. The way he said her name, with that slight accent wrapping around the syllables, made it sound almost intimate. 1 hour. The Volkov estate was a fortress disguised as a mansion. Alexei met her at the door, leading her through hallways lined with art that belonged in museums. Papa's been on the phone all afternoon, he said. He's angry, but not at you. Actually, I think he's interested. Interested in my skills, Zara clarified, but Alexei gave her a knowing look that was far too mature for 13.
Sure.
Skills. That's definitely what he was asking about when he wanted to know if you were married. Before Zara could process that, they reached the office. Dimitri stood with his back to the door, jacket discarded, sleeves rolled up to reveal surprisingly muscular forearms. When he turned, the intensity in his eyes made Zara's breath catch. Miss Hayes, he greeted, and the formal address felt at odds with the heat in his gaze. Thank you for coming. Please sit. Zara remained standing, a subtle power play. She saw the acknowledgement in his eyes, the slight smile that said he understood exactly what she was doing, and liked it. I've reviewed the cafe security footage, Dimitri said, pulling up images. Your instincts were correct. Those men work for the Kozlov family, rivals who've been trying to move into my territory. Taking Alexei would have given them significant leverage. How did they know where he'd be? Zara moved closer to examine the images, hyper-aware of Dimitri's proximity. He smelled expensive, cologne and something darker, dangerous. That's what I need you to find out. Dimitri pulled up personnel files. Someone in my organization is feeding information. I need to know who. That could take weeks, Zara said. I'm aware. Dimitri named a figure that made her breath catch. That's per month, plus expenses, plus the completion bonus. You'd work from here, full access to my systems. Alexei has also requested you continue teaching him. Tutoring wasn't part of the deal, Zara protested. No, Dimitri agreed, moving closer until she could feel the heat radiating from his body. But I suspect there's very little you do that stays within the original parameters, Miss Hayes. You're someone who sees what needs to be done and does it, regardless of whether it's in your job description. His voice had dropped, become almost intimate. That quality is attractive. The word hung between them, loaded with meaning that had nothing to do with professional admiration. Zara's pulse hammered as she met his gaze, seeing the want there, carefully controlled but undeniably present. I don't work for criminals, she said, but her voice lacked conviction. You'll find my organization operates with more ethics than most Fortune 500 companies, Dimitri replied. His hand came up, not quite touching her but close enough that she felt the ghost of contact along her arm. I don't deal drugs, don't traffic humans, don't prey on the vulnerable. We provide services through channels that avoid excessive regulation. Illegal?
Yes.
Immoral? Debatable. Semantics, Zara countered, but she didn't step back. Perhaps. Dimitri's expression hardened slightly. But the Kozlovs don't share my boundaries. If they take over my territory, violence will escalate beyond anything this city has seen. I'm offering you a choice. Help me maintain control, or walk away knowing what comes next. He paused. Though I'll admit, my motivations aren't entirely altruistic. I find myself very interested in keeping you close, Miss Hayes. For professional reasons, of course. The way he said it made it clear his reasons weren't entirely professional. Zara felt herself being pulled into his orbit, drawn by the intensity of his attention, the dangerous allure of a man who looked at her like she was something worth fighting for. Trial basis, she heard herself say. 1 month. I find your mole, and we reassess. Fair enough, Dimitri agreed, extending his hand. When Zara took it, he held on a moment longer than necessary, his thumb stroking across her knuckles in a gesture that felt deliberately intimate. Welcome to the Volkov family, Zara. The use of her first name, combined with his touch, sent heat pooling low in her stomach. She pulled her hand away, But the damage was done. She was already in too deep. 3 weeks into her employment, Zara had barely left the estate. She'd set up a workstation in what used to be a library, surrounded by monitors. The mole remained elusive, but she'd narrowed suspects to 5 people. She was so focused, she didn't hear Dimitri approach until his voice came from directly behind her. "You haven't gone outside in 4 days." Zara jumped, spinning to find him close enough that she could see the gold flecks in his dark eyes. "I'm close to something," she managed. "Zara." The way he said her name, soft and concerned, made her chest tighten. "You're going to burn out. Come have dinner with us. The work will be here in an hour." It was the gentleness that broke through her defenses.
Fine, she conceded.
"But if I solve this over dinner, you're doubling my bonus." Dimitri's smile was slow, devastating. "If you solve this over dinner, I'll give you whatever you want." The promise in his voice made it clear he wasn't just talking about money. Dinner was pleasant. Alexei demonstrating his coding project, Dimitri telling stories about Moscow before the Soviet collapse. But Zara felt the weight of Dimitri's attention throughout the meal, the way his eyes lingered on her face, how he found excuses to lean close when passing dishes. "Your mother would have liked Zara," Alexei said suddenly, making both adults freeze. "She liked people who didn't back down, who had their own strength." Dimitri's expression softened. "Your mother was fearless, brilliant, refused to accept limitations anyone tried to place on her." His eyes met Zara's across the table. "You remind me of her sometimes. That same fire." The comparison felt intimate, dangerous. Zara stood abruptly. "I should get back to work." But Dimitri's hand caught her wrist, gentle but firm, sending electricity up her arm. "Stay," he said quietly. "Just a few more minutes. Tell me something about you that has nothing to do with code or criminals." It was a request, not a command, and somehow that made it impossible to refuse. Zara sat back down slowly, aware of Alexei watching them with knowing eyes. "I wanted to be a teacher," Zara admitted, "before everything went sideways. I wanted to teach kids in foster care, show them intelligence was a way out." "What stopped you?" Dimitri asked, his thumb still absently stroking the inside of her wrist, the touch making it hard to concentrate. "Reality. Money. Survival." She shrugged. "So, I chose pragmatism over dreams." "You chose survival over dreams," Dimitri corrected softly. "I understand that choice intimately. But maybe—" His eyes searched hers. "Maybe together we could find a way back to those dreams. Build something better than what we've settled for." The together hung in the air between them, weighted with possibility. Before Zara could respond, alarms suddenly blared, red lights flashing. Dimitri was on his feet instantly, his demeanor transforming from intimate to lethal in a heartbeat. "Take Alexei to the safe room," he ordered. "Northeast corridor, third door. Code is your birthday backwards. I memorized it weeks ago." The admission that he'd memorized her birthday sent a different kind of heat through Zara, but there was no time to process it. She grabbed Alexei and ran. The safe room had monitors showing security feeds. Zara's fingers flew across keyboards, pulling up angles. "For vehicles East Gate," she reported through the comm system. "But Dimitri, there's a fifth approaching south. They're using the main attack as distraction." Redirecting units. Dimitri's voice came back. "Can you lock down South Gate remotely?" "Locking down now." Zara's knowledge of the system from her investigation proved invaluable. "But they're going to breach the garage level." "Let them. I'm setting a trap." "Zara," his voice changed, became urgent. "If I don't make it out, there's an envelope in my office safe, code 1847. Everything you need to disappear with Alexei. Promise me." The request made her chest tighten painfully. "You're not going to die. Promise me, Zara. Please." The raw emotion in his voice undid her. "I promise," she whispered, "but you're coming back." The next 20 minutes were agony. Zara watched monitors as Dimitri's team fought back, as Dimitri himself took down threats with brutal efficiency. Then she saw him in the garage, gun raised, a man appearing behind him. "Papa!" Alexei shouted. Zara's heart stopped as she watched the scene unfold. A lieutenant taking the bullet meant for Dimitri, going down, Dimitri's face transforming into cold fury as he eliminated remaining threats. When the all-clear sounded, Zara and Alexei emerged to controlled chaos. Dimitri stood coordinating everything despite blood on his shirt, not his own, but from carrying his fallen lieutenant. When he saw Zara, something shifted in his expression. He crossed the space between them in long strides, and before she could speak, he pulled her into his arms, one hand tangling in her hair, the other wrapped around her waist. "You kept him safe," Dimitri said roughly against her temple. "You kept my son safe." His arms tightened, and Zara felt him trembling slightly, the adrenaline and fear finally catching up. She wrapped her arms around him, offering comfort, feeling his heart hammering against her chest. "Of course I did," she said softly. "I promised." Dimitri pulled back enough to look at her, his eyes intense. "Mikhail was the mole, the man who saved me. He was one of your 5 suspects." In the medical bay, Mikhail lay dying. "My daughter," he gasped when he saw Zara. "Kozlovs took her 3 months ago. Said if I helped them, she'd live. I had no choice." Blood appeared at the corner of his mouth. "Location is in my phone, encrypted. Password is her birthday, 0327. Real attack comes in 2 weeks, during Petrova shipment." His hand gripped Zara's. "Save my Katerina. Please." He died minutes later, his final plea for the daughter he'd betrayed everything to protect. The rescue operation happened that night. Zara insisted on coming, using her skills to disable security systems. It was the first time she saw Dimitri's organization in full combat mode, efficient and terrifying. They found Katerina alive, 17 and traumatized but physically unharmed. When Dimitri wrapped a blanket around her shoulders, Zara saw the man beneath the criminal, the father who understood what it meant to love and fear for a child. Back at the estate as dawn broke, Dimitri found Zara in her workstation, supposedly updating security, but really processing everything. "You saved Katerina," he said quietly from the doorway. "Mikhail's information was encrypted so well that without your skills, we never would have found her in time." "I just did the job," Zara replied, but her voice lacked conviction.
No.
Dimitri moved closer, and she felt that familiar pull, that gravitational force he seemed to exert. "You went beyond any job description. You risked yourself because it was right. That's who you are, Zara. Despite everything you've convinced yourself about just surviving, you're still the woman who wanted to teach, who wanted to help." He was close now, close enough that she could see exhaustion in his eyes, the weight he carried. "This is dangerous," she whispered. "Everything worthwhile is dangerous," Dimitri replied. His hand came up to cup her cheek, thumb stroking along her cheekbone with devastating gentleness. "I'm not asking for promises. I'm asking you to stay. Help me build something better. Teach Alexei, teach others. Use your gifts the way you always wanted to." His eyes searched hers. "And maybe, if you're willing, let me show you that not every risk ends in loss. Some risks." His thumb traced her lower lip. "Some risks are worth taking." "You're offering me a place in your criminal empire," Zara breathed, but she was leaning into his touch. "I'm offering you my heart," Dimitri corrected, his voice rough with emotion. "One that's complicated and scarred and hasn't belonged to anyone since my wife died. But it's yours, Zara, if you want it. Along with everything else, family, purpose, a chance to build the life you gave up on." When he kissed her, it was gentle and questioning, giving her every chance to pull away. But Zara had been alone for so long, had convinced herself that wanting was weakness, that connection was liability. Dimitri's kiss shattered those carefully built walls, replacing them with something that felt like hope. She kissed him back, pouring years of loneliness and longing into the connection, feeling his arms wrap around her like a promise of safety she'd never thought she'd find. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Dimitri rested his forehead against hers. "Stay," he whispered. "Not just for the job. Stay for this. For us." "Yes," Zara replied, and felt her life shift on its axis. Everything she'd been running from transforming into something she was finally willing to run toward. 6 months later, Zara stood in the renovated library, now a classroom, teaching computer science to teenagers including Alexei and Katerina, children of Dimitri's organization, kids who needed skills to build better futures. Dimitri watched from the doorway, the same way he did most afternoons, his expression soft in a way only Zara and Alexei ever saw. She'd helped him eliminate the remaining security threats, restructured his systems, and slowly begun building the legitimate business empire that would eventually replace the criminal one. When class ended and students filtered out, Dimitri crossed to her, slipping his arms around her waist from behind, pressing a kiss to her temple. "Good class today," he murmured against her skin. "You're born for this. Teaching, shaping minds." "I learned from the best," Zara replied, turning in his arms to face him. "A very stubborn Russian who showed me that sometimes the right path isn't the safe one." Stubborn. Dimitri's eyes gleamed with amusement and heat. "I prefer persistent, especially when I know what I want." His hand came up to cup her face, thumb stroking her cheek in the gesture that had become his signature touch. "And I wanted you from the moment you told me you'd disappear if I tried to trick you. So fierce, so brave. So reckless," Zara corrected, but she was smiling. "So perfect," Dimitri countered, capturing her lips in a kiss that still made her pulse race even after 6 months together. "For me, for Alexei, for this life we're building." Alexei's voice came from the doorway, exasperated and amused. "Are you two ever going to stop being so disgustingly in love? Because I'm 13 and it's traumatizing." Dimitri laughed, a sound that still surprised Zara with its warmth, so different from the cold criminal she'd first met. "Not likely, son. Your father is a persistent man." "Stubborn." Zara and Alexei chorused together, making Dimitri shake his head with mock offense. But as evening settled over the estate and Zara looked at her unexpected family, brilliant Alexei working on his latest project, strong Dimitri planning their future with the same strategic mind he'd once used for crime, she realized she'd found something she'd stopped believing existed. A home. Not a place, but people who saw her completely and chose her anyway, who valued her skills and her heart in equal measure, who proved that sometimes the most dangerous risks led to the most beautiful rewards. Dimitri's hand found hers, fingers intertwining with familiar ease. "What are you thinking?" he asked softly, reading the emotion on her face with the same precision he read everything else. "That I'm glad I saved a boy in a cafe," Zara admitted, "even if it led me straight into danger." "Not danger," Dimitri corrected, bringing her hand to his lips and pressing a kiss to her knuckles. "Destiny. You were always meant to find us, Zara. To save Alexei, to save me from becoming my father, to save yourself from a life half-lived." "Poetic for a mobster," Zara teased, but her voice was thick with emotion. "Reformed mobster," Dimitri corrected with a grin. "You're reforming me one legitimate business venture at a time. Though, I maintain my best venture was hiring you. Best return on investment I've ever seen." "I'm not an investment," Zara protested, but he was already kissing her again, slow and thorough and full of promise. "No," he agreed when they broke apart. "You're everything. My partner, my love, the future I didn't know I was allowed to want. And every day I wake up grateful that you were brave enough to risk everything for a stranger's son, stubborn enough to stay despite the danger, and foolish enough to fall in love with a man who definitely didn't deserve you." "You deserve me," Zara said fiercely. "You deserve this. We both do." Outside, the city stretched toward night, full of dangers and opportunities. But in this fortress that had become home, surrounded by love hard-won and fiercely protected, Zara had found her place in the world. Not as a survivor scraping by, but as a woman who'd chosen to fight for something better, who'd taken the biggest risk of her life and found that sometimes, against all odds, the dangerous path led exactly where you needed to be. Thank you for following this story. If you enjoyed it, Please write in the comments where you're watching from, and don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this video. Your support helps me continue creating content like this.